Tonight we are going to spend a long, quiet while with a particular kind of mind. A mind that notices the small pause before an answer, the little change in a room when someone grows distant, the shape of silence after a conversation ends. If you are this kind of person, you may know how tiring it can be to receive so much from ordinary life before we settle in. If this calm psychology journey feels like a good companion for your night, you can like the video and subscribe in the gentlest possible way. And because this is our first video here, you are very welcome to suggest future sleepy topics in the comments. Tell us where you are listening from and what time it is there. Somewhere perhaps someone is lying awake at 3 in the morning, wondering why their mind reads the world like a very careful book. Let this opening move at the pace of a page turning slowly. You do not have to decide whether the description fits you exactly. It is enough to notice any small recognition and then let it drift by as gently as a curtain moving in night air. And now, with that little invitation placed softly at the door, there is nothing else you need to do. You can let the lights dim a little, you can pull the blanket closer around your shoulders, or let one hand rest somewhere warm and easy. If there is a fan in the room, or the soft hum of distant traffic, or a thin ribbon of rain at the window, let it become part of the background. We are not here to solve your whole life tonight. We are only going to walk slowly through the psychology of being too aware, not as a problem to judge, but as a landscape to understand. Some parts of that landscape are bright, some parts are exhausting, and as we move through them, you can let the edges of the day become less sharp. The room can hold the whole subject for you, the blanket can hold the body. The small sounds around you can become proof that nothing needs to hurry. Even a thoughtful topic can be approached as slowly as a path through a garden after dusk. There are people who seem to live with their attention turned slightly higher than everyone else's. They may not speak much in a group, yet they are gathering more than they show. They notice when the conversation begins to lean away from one person. They notice when a joke is almost kind, but not quite. They notice the difference between a person who is peaceful and a person who is merely quiet. This noticing does not always feel dramatic. Often it is subtle, like hearing a clock in the next room after everyone else has stopped listening. The mind receives details, places them beside one another, and begins to search for meaning. Sometimes the meaning is real. Sometimes it is only the mind trying to protect itself. Either way, the aware person carries more impressions home than other people may imagine. This is one reason a highly aware person may seem calm on the outside, while much is happening within. Their face may be still, their voice ordinary, and yet the mind is arranging impressions with quiet speed, like a careful hand sorting shells after the tide. To be too aware is not simply to be intelligent, although intelligence can be part of it. It is not simply to be anxious, although anxiety can sometimes travel with it. It is a way of taking in the world with unusual depth, a habit of hearing the second note beneath the first. The over-aware person may understand a situation quickly and then suffer because they cannot stop understanding it. They may sense what is unspoken and then wonder whether they should have sensed it at all. They may long for the simple surface of things, a message that is just a message, a quiet evening that is just an evening, a passing mood that does not need to be interpreted. But the mind keeps arriving with its little lantern, lighting corners that might have been left in shadow. There is no need to admire or condemn this lantern. Tonight we are only watching how it moves. It may illuminate helpful things, and it may also tire the hand that carries it. Both can be true in the same soft hour. For tonight, we will take the long way through this subject. We will look at temperament, memory, the nervous system, social awareness, empathy, the body, and the wish to predict what is coming. But we will do it slowly. Nothing here needs to be held tightly. You may listen to every word, or you may let the meaning drift in and out as sleep comes closer. This is not a diagnosis, it is a soft map. Some people are more sensitive by nature, some became alert because life once required it. Many are a mixture of both. And wherever your own story belongs, there is room here for it to be met without shame, without hurry, and without the demand that you immediately become different. If one idea feels too sharp, you can let it blur. If one sentence feels useful, you can keep it lightly. The whole journey is meant to be spacious, more like a slow documentary heard from under a blanket than a lesson that must be memorized. Imagine for a moment a quiet study at night. There is a wooden desk, a lamp with a warm shade, and a stack of papers waiting beside a cup of cooling tea. Outside the window, the street is mostly dark, except for one small pool of light beneath a tree. This is the kind of space the aware mind often needs, even if it does not always find it. A place where impressions can settle, a place where no one asks it to explain every signal it has collected. In that room, the mind can begin to notice its own noticing. It can say very gently, "I've been listening hard today. I've been watching, I've been trying to keep myself safe." And perhaps just for now, I can set a little of that watching down in such a room The mind does not have to be impressive. It does not have to prove how much it has noticed. It can simply be a tired guest, welcomed in, offered a chair, and allowed to stop explaining itself for a little while. The first chapter of this journey is simply an arrival. We are arriving at the idea that awareness is not one single thing. It is a collection of small capacities: perception, memory, pattern recognition, imagination, empathy, caution, and the ability to reflect on oneself. When these capacities work together gently, they can create wisdom. When they work without rest, they can create strain. The same mind that notices beauty in the way evening light rests on a wall may also notice tension in a room before anyone speaks of it. The same person who can write a thoughtful message may spend half the night wondering whether one sentence sounded wrong. So we begin with kindness. Not everything that exhausts you is evidence that you are weak. Sometimes it is evidence that you have been paying attention for a very long time, so we place the first stone on the path. Awareness deserves kindness. Not applause that makes it work harder, and not criticism that makes it hide, but kindness that says, I see how much you have carried, and we can walk more slowly now. What then does it really mean to notice too much? It means that the ordinary world arrives with extra detail. A hallway is not only a hallway, it has a certain echo, a certain color of light, a sense of whether people have been moving through it calmly or in haste. A conversation is not only words, it has pace, hesitation, warmth, distance, and all the little shifts that happen around meaning. The over-aware mind does not always choose to gather these things, it simply finds them already gathered. It is as if the day leaves more footprints behind it, and the mind, because it can see them, feels responsible for reading each one. But seeing a footprint is not the same as needing to follow it. That distinction will become important later when the night grows quieter. The image of footprints is useful because footprints do not shout, they simply remain. A sensitive mind may feel responsible for every print in the sand, but the shore is wide, and not every mark must become a story before the tide returns. In psychology, awareness can refer to many layers at once. There is sensory awareness, the basic noticing of sound, light, texture, temperature, movement. There is social awareness, the sense of what may be happening between people. There is emotional awareness, the ability to name what is stirring inside the body and heart. And there is reflective awareness, the mind's ability to step back and think about its own thoughts. A person who is too aware may have several of these layers active at the same time. They are listening to the room, listening to another person, listening to themselves, and sometimes listening to the imagined response of someone who is not even there. No wonder it can feel crowded inside. No wonder silence can still feel busy. These layers can overlap so quietly that the person forgets they are layers. They only feel the final density, the fullness inside the head. Naming the layers can create relief, because what has been one heavy cloud becomes several softer clouds passing at different heights. The brain is built to make predictions. It takes fragments of information and asks, what is likely to happen next? This is useful. It helps us cross a street, understand a friend's expression, or find our way through a familiar house in the dark. But in a highly aware person, prediction can become nearly constant. The mind may treat small uncertainty as unfinished business. It wants to complete the picture. If someone answers with fewer words than usual, the mind wants to know why. If an invitation feels slightly formal, the mind wants to know what changed. It may be right or it may be guessing, but either way, the body reacts as if the answer matters now. And because the answer is often unavailable, the mind keeps circling the question like a slow bird over dark water. This circling can happen even in pleasant circumstances. The mind may want to understand a kind gesture, a small invitation, or a sudden memory. Awareness is not only drawn to trouble, it is drawn to meaning, and meaning can appear anywhere. One difficulty is that heightened awareness can be rewarded. People may praise the aware person for being thoughtful, insightful, intuitive, mature, or unusually considerate. They may become the friend who notices when someone is quietly left out. They may become the worker who sees a problem before it grows. They may become the child who learns the mood of a household before the adults have named it. These abilities can be genuinely valuable. They can protect, connect, and create. But when a capacity is always rewarded, a person may forget that they are allowed to rest from it. They may feel that being useful means being constantly tuned in. They may confuse peace with neglect and stillness with not doing enough. Yet a mind is not less caring when it is allowed to be quiet. There is a subtle pressure in becoming the person who notices. Others may lean on that gift without seeing its cost. The aware person may quietly become the early warning system for a room while secretly longing to be only a person in the room. There is also the private cost of seeing more than one can easily share. An over-aware person may hesitate to explain what they notice because the evidence is often subtle. How do you describe the exact weight of a silence, or the way a room seemed to tighten when a certain name was mentioned? How do you tell someone that a pleasant answer felt rehearsed, without sounding suspicious or unkind? So the aware person may keep many perceptions to themselves. They may carry them like small folded notes in a pocket. Some notes are useful, some are mistaken, some are simply too many. Over time, the pocket grows heavy, and because the notes are invisible to others, the person may feel strangely alone with what they have sensed. When perceptions stay private, they can also become less testable. A thought kept alone may grow larger than it would in daylight. This is why gentle conversation, when safe, can sometimes let an impression find its proper size. This is why the word "to" matters. Awareness itself is not the difficulty. Too much awareness means awareness without enough choice, without enough space, without enough permission to let a signal pass by. It is the difference between seeing the moon and trying to measure every pale stone it touches. It is the difference between hearing rain and counting every drop. A healthy mind can notice and then return. A tired mind notices and remains fastened to the noticing. Tonight, we are slowly practicing the return, not by forcing the mind to be blank, because the mind does not become blank on command, but by showing it that not every detail is a request. Some details can simply be details. Some moments can be left uncollected. Leaving a moment uncollected can feel strange at first. The mind may reach back for it automatically, but like leaving a flower in the field instead of pressing it into a book, some experiences remain more peaceful when they are allowed to stay where they are. So if you recognize yourself here, you might begin with this quiet possibility. Perhaps your mind is not broken because it sees many layers. Perhaps it has simply learned to treat every layer as urgent. The work over time is not to become careless or dull. It is to become selective. To know that a shift in tone may mean something and also may not need your attention tonight. To know that your body may be sending a signal and also that the signal can be heard without panic. To know that other people have hidden weather and also that their weather does not always belong in your own chest. This is the slow path from too much awareness towards steadier awareness, a path that can begin here in the dark with one breath. The word selective is quiet but important. It suggests choice, not numbness. It says your noticing may remain alive, but it does not need to answer every knock. Even a bright house has rooms where the lamps are off. Some people seem to arrive in life with a more finely tuned temperament. Even as children, they may notice fabric that scratches, lights that buzz, moods that change, and stories that carry sadness under the surface. They may be moved by music in a way they cannot explain. They may need more time after a busy day, not because they dislike people, but because their nervous system has been receiving life in rich detail. Researchers sometimes describe a trait called sensory processing sensitivity, which is often discussed in relation to highly sensitive people. It is not a disorder, it is one possible pattern of temperament. The brain and body may process stimulation more deeply, pause longer before acting, and become more affected by both harshness and beauty. This temperament may show itself in ways that seem small to others. A label in clothing, a crowded room, a story told with hidden grief, or a sudden bright supermarket aisle may all leave traces. The body has been paying attention before the person has formed an opinion. A sensitive temperament can be misunderstood. A child who needs quiet may be called dramatic. A teenager who thinks before answering may be called distant. An adult who feels drained after social noise may be told to relax, as if relaxation were a switch hidden somewhere behind the ribs. But the sensitive nervous system is not pretending. It is doing what it does. It is noticing volume, brightness, emotional tone, and implication with more intensity than someone else might. On a gentle day, this can bring richness. The person may love the smell of old books, the exact blue of early morning, the kindness in a small gesture. On a difficult day, the same openness can feel like standing too near many bells at once. When this is understood, many old judgments can soften. Sensitivity is not laziness, fragility, or refusal. It is a nervous system with a different threshold, a different rhythm, and often a different kind of beauty in what it can receive. Depth of processing is an important part of this temperament. It means that impressions do not simply pass through. They are compared, remembered, associated, and quietly considered. The aware person may leave a museum and keep thinking about one painted hand, one faded doorway, one face in the background of a picture. They may hear a sentence from a friend and connect it with something the friend said months before. This depth can make them creative, careful, and compassionate. It can also make decisions slower because every choice seems to open into many consequences. When the mind thinks in layers, even a small decision can feel like a room with several doors. The goal is not to close all the doors, it is to walk through one gently. The many-door room does not have to be frightening. Some doors may remain closed tonight, some may open later. Some were only imagined by a cautious mind. For now, it is enough to stand in the center and feel the floor beneath you. The sensitive mind often benefits from transition. Abrupt changes can feel harder because the system needs time to let one state end before another begins. A noisy afternoon may require a quiet evening. A meaningful conversation may require a walk afterward. A crowded train may require a few minutes by a window, watching the city pass into softer streets. When people do not understand this, they may treat the need for transition as inconvenience. But for the over-aware person, transition is not luxury, it is digestion. The day has been taken in, and now it must be made livable. Like tea leaves settling at the bottom of a cup, impressions need time to sink before the water becomes clear. This settling is part of wisdom. A cup of tea does not become clear because someone shouts at it. It clears because it is left alone long enough. The aware mind, too many periods of being left kindly alone. There is a quieter gift here as well. A sensitive person may notice what is beautiful before anyone names it. They may see that a room feels calmer when a chair is turned toward the light. They may sense when a friend needs silence instead of advice. They may understand that a story is not only about what happened, but about the feeling that remains afterward. Such awareness can make a person an artist, a careful listener, a gentle parent, a thoughtful leader, or simply someone whose presence makes life less harsh. It is worth saying this slowly. The same sensitivity that tires you may also be the source of your tenderness. The question is how to protect that tenderness from becoming a constant open door. Tenderness becomes safer when it has a rhythm of opening and closing. A flower that opened all night would soon be exhausted. Even living things that love the light fold themselves inward when the hour asks them to rest. Protection does not mean shutting the world out completely. It may mean learning which kinds of stimulation ask too much of you at certain times. It may mean lowering a light, leaving a gathering before exhaustion becomes resentment, choosing fewer open tabs in your mind, or letting a message wait until morning. Sensitive people sometimes feel guilty for needing these small boundaries, but a garden gate is not an insult to the road. It is part of what lets the garden remain a garden. In the same way, your attention may need gates, not walls of fear, not cold distance, just gentle gates that open and close according to the season, the hour, and the amount of energy available. The gate can be modest. It may be a softer schedule, a slower reply, a quiet corner after a gathering, or the courage to say that today has been enough. Such choices are not dramatic, but they protect the conditions where gentleness can survive. As we finish this chapter on temperament, let the idea become simple. Some minds are built to notice softly and deeply. They may need more quiet. They may feel more from music, weather, memory, and tone. They may become tired in places that others find ordinary. None of this makes them less capable. It means they must learn the rhythm of their own system. A sensitive person who honors the rhythm may become more present, not less. They can listen without being flooded, perceive without being captured, care without disappearing into care. And tonight, if you're sensitive in this way, you do not have to apologize to the room around you. You can simply let the room be gentle enough for the person you are. If you have often apologized for needing quiet, imagine not apologizing for one night. Imagine treating quiet as ordinary nourishment like water or sleep. The body may recognize that kindness before the mind fully believes it. Not all heightened awareness begins as temperament. Sometimes it begins as training, though no one calls it that at the time. A person may grow up in a home, a school, or a relationship where moods change suddenly, where approval feels uncertain, or where small mistakes receive large reactions. In such places, attention becomes useful. The mind learns to read the air before speaking. It learns which footsteps mean hurry, which quiet means peace, and which quiet means trouble. This learning may happen early, before the child has words for it. The body learns first, shoulders lift, breath shortens, listening becomes sharper. The child is not choosing to become watchful. The nervous system is discovering that watchfulness may reduce surprise. This kind of training is often invisible from the outside. No certificate is given for learning how to read a room before breakfast or how to sense disappointment before it is spoken. Yet the body remembers the curriculum with great seriousness. The brain's alarm systems are designed to keep us alive. The amygdala, often described as part of the danger detection network, helps the body respond when something might be wrong. In a steady environment, this alarm can rise and fall. It sounds when needed, then rests. But when life is unpredictable for long enough, the alarm may become easier to trigger. The body begins to prefer caution. It says better to notice too much than too little. Better to prepare for a storm that does not arrive than to be unprepared for one that does. This makes sense as adaptation. It is not foolish, it is the body being loyal to old lessons. The difficulty is that old lessons may continue after the old classroom has closed. An alarm that has worked too hard may not trust silence immediately. It may ring at the smallest sound. Patience is needed here because the alarm is not foolish. It is outdated in some places, but it once had reason. A person who learned alertness may become an adult who can sense tension very quickly yet not understand why rest feels unsafe. They may sit in a peaceful room and still listen for the next change. They may receive kindness and search for its hidden condition. They may keep themselves emotionally prepared, as if a calm afternoon were only a pause before something more difficult. This is not because they love worry. It is because the body associates surprise with pain, so the mind tries to remove surprise by thinking ahead. It is a tender strategy, though it can become tiring. It says, if I can notice early enough, perhaps I will not be hurt in the same way again. This preparation can become so familiar that peace feels unfamiliar. The nervous system may search for the missing problem because problem searching once made sense. Slowly, it can learn that an absence of danger is not a trick, it is simply quiet. One gentle way to understand learned alertness is to imagine an old house at night. Years ago, perhaps, certain floorboards creaked before a hard conversation. Certain doors closed before someone withdrew affection. Certain changes in light or sound meant the emotional weather was shifting. The person learned the language of the house, later they moved somewhere else. The walls changed, the people changed, but the body still remembered the language. It heard ordinary sounds and translated them with an old dictionary. This is why healing often takes time. The mind may know that the present is different, while the body asks for more evidence. It asks again and again, are we truly safe now? The old dictionary may translate quickly, but it can be edited slowly. New definitions are added through repeated safety, honest kindness, and experiences that end differently from the feared ending page by page. The language changes. If this is part of your story, it can help to separate blame from understanding. You do not have to blame yourself for being watchful. Watchfulness may have helped you get through something. It may have helped you avoid conflict, care for others, succeed in demanding places, or read situations that were never explained honestly. But what once helped can later become too heavy to carry everywhere. A winter coat is useful in winter, it becomes uncomfortable in a warm room. The task is not to hate the coat. The task is to notice the room you are in now, to feel whether the old protection is still needed or whether it can rest across the back of a chair for a while. No one has to remove the coat all at once. Sometimes it is enough to unbutton it. Sometimes it is enough to notice the room is warm. Sometimes rest begins with the smallest permission to be a little less armored. The nervous system learns through repetition, and it can also learn through repetition in the other direction. Calm moments, if they are frequent and gentle enough, become evidence. A friend who remains kind after a mistake becomes evidence. A quiet evening that stays quiet becomes evidence. A body sensation that rises and falls without danger becomes evidence. None of these moments erase the past all at once. They simply add new pages to the nervous system's record. Over time, the record can become more balanced. Not every silence has to be the old silence. Not every delay has to mean rejection. Not every change in mood has to become an emergency. The present can slowly earn the right to be different from before. Evidence of safety often looks ordinary. A door closing gently, a disagreement that does not become abandonment, a tired mood that passes without blame. These small facts may seem unimpressive to the mind, yet they are exactly the facts the body needs. For now, let this chapter close with a small kindness toward the watchful parts of you. They may be tired, but they are not your enemy. They may overestimate danger, but they were trying to protect something tender. You can imagine them like little lamps left burning in a hallway long after everyone has gone to bed. You do not need to smash the lamps, you can simply lower the light. You can say, "Thank you for trying. I see why you stayed awake." Tonight the door is closed, the room is quiet, and we can let some of the hallway grow dark. Awareness that came from survival can, very slowly, learn the softer art of safety. The hallway can darken gradually. One lamp tonight, another tomorrow. The watchful part does not need to be defeated. It needs to become convinced, and convincing a protective part usually happens through steadiness, not force. Now we come to the social world, where too much awareness often becomes most visible. People are full of small signals. A person may answer warmly with words while their body leans away. Someone may smile because they are happy, or because they are trying to keep the peace, or because they do not know what else to do. Groups have their own weather. They warm, cool, gather, divide, and settle. An aware person may feel these changes almost immediately. They may enter a meeting, a kitchen, a classroom, or a family dinner and sense that something has already happened. Others may need this story explained. The over-aware person feels a trace of the story in the air before the for a sentence arrives, in social spaces the over-aware person may feel as if they are hearing the bass note under the melody. Others may be following the words while they are also sensing rhythm, distance, and strain. This can make connection rich, but rarely simple. This kind of social perception can be useful. It can help a person choose a softer tone, include someone who has grown quiet, or leave a delicate subject alone until a better time. It can make them tactful. It can make them trustworthy. Yet it can also make ordinary contact complicated. A short reply may seem to contain a whole landscape of possible meanings. A compliment may be examined for temperature. A pause before a goodbye may be replayed later, not because the person wants drama, but because the social mind is still trying to complete the picture. The difficulty is that human beings are not always readable. Sometimes a mood belongs to hunger, pain, distraction, memory, or nothing that concerns us at all. If the mind can remember that moods have many causes, social life becomes less punishing. A person's coolness may come from a headache, a private worry, or plain fatigue. The aware mind can make room for these possibilities without abandoning its sensitivity. The aware person may also be skilled at theory of mind, the ability to imagine what another person might be thinking or feeling. This ability is central to empathy and social life. It allows us to understand that other people have inner worlds different from our own. But when it becomes too active, it can fill a room with imagined minds. The person is no longer only speaking to someone. They are speaking to what they think the other person thinks, what the other person may be hiding, what the other person may feel later, and what the whole situation might mean. This can create carefulness, but also fatigue. A simple conversation becomes crowded with invisible listeners. The invisible listeners do not always need seats at the table. Sometimes a conversation can be only the person in front of you and the sentence you are saying now. That smaller room can feel almost luxurious to a tired social mind. There is a particular loneliness in noticing what others do not want to name. Perhaps two people are annoyed with each other, but everyone is pretending the room is easy. Perhaps a friend says they are fine, and some deeper part of you senses that fine means not yet ready to speak. Perhaps a family member changes the subject whenever a certain memory appears. The aware person may feel the unstated thing pressing against the walls, but if they point to it too quickly, others may deny it. If they say nothing, they must sit beside it alone. This is one reason over-aware people sometimes seem quiet. Their quietness may not be emptiness. It may be a crowded form of restraint. Restraint is not the same as distance. Sometimes it is care wearing a quiet coat. The aware person may choose not to name everything because timing matters, readiness matters, and some truths need soft ground before they can be received. Still, social awareness does not have to become suspicion. There is a difference between sensing complexity and assuming harm. People are complicated for many reasons. A nervous laugh is not always false. A slow answer is not always rejection. A changed tone is not always about you. Sometimes human beings are simply tired, hungry, preoccupied, shy, embarrassed, hopeful, or uncertain. The aware mind may benefit from adding gentle alternatives to its interpretations. Instead of asking only what is wrong here, it can ask what else could be true. This question does not erase intuition. It gives intuition room to breathe. It opens a window in a room that has become too warm with meaning. Adding alternatives is like loosening a knot by one thread. The mind does not have to become naive. It simply admits that its first interpretation may not be the whole cloth. Relief often enters through that small opening. The social world asks for a balance between openness and humility. Your perception may be accurate, and it may also be partial. You may sense a change, but not know its cause. You may detect sadness, but not be the person meant to carry it. You may notice discomfort, but not be responsible for repairing it immediately. This humility can be restful. It says, I can notice without claiming to know everything. I can care without taking control. I can let people have private weather. When this becomes possible, relationships begin to feel less like puzzles and more like gardens. You can observe the light, the soil, the season, and still remember that not every root is yours to examine. Private weather is a merciful idea. It allows people to be complex without making their complexity your assignment. It allows you to stand near them kindly while still feeling the ground of your own life under your feet. So as we leave this chapter of rooms and faces, picture a long table in the evening with glasses of water, folded napkins, and a small lamp glowing in the center. People speak softly. Some things are said, some things are not. You do not have to read all of it tonight. You do not have to translate every glance. You can let some conversations belong to the people who are having them. You can let some silence stay simple. You can be kind without becoming a detective of every mood. There is peace in knowing that awareness is allowed to pause at the edge of another person's life, bow gently, and return home. The lamp on the table can become enough. The water in the glass can become enough. When the mind wants to scan the entire gathering, you can return to one simple object, one breath, one quiet permission not to know everything. The next layer is the inner observer, the part of the mind that notices itself. This ability is called metacognition, thinking about thinking, knowing that you're having a thought, recognizing that a feeling is present. In healthy amounts, metacognition is useful. It helps us learn, reflect, apologize, choose, and grow. But in an overaware person, the inner observer may become very busy. The person does not simply feel nervous. They notice that they feel nervous, wonder why they feel nervous, judge whether the nervousness is reasonable, imagine what others would think of it, and then become nervous about being nervous. The first feeling may be small. The layers added around it become heavy. Metacognition is one of the mind's great tools, but even a fine tool becomes tiring if it is never set down. A hammer is useful in building a house, but no one sleeps well while holding it above the pillow. Self-awareness can become like a mirror that follows a person from room to room. They are not only living, they are watching themselves live. They speak and immediately review the sentence. They rest and wonder whether they are resting correctly. They laugh and notice the sound of their own laugh. They try to be natural, and the effort to be natural makes naturalness slip further away. This can be especially tiring because presence depends on a little forgetting of the self. To enjoy music, one must partly stop monitoring how one appears while listening. To feel close to another person, one must not continuously measure the closeness. The inner observer can be wise, but it must sometimes sit down. The mirror can be moved to the side. It does not have to shatter. It only has to stop standing directly in front of every experience. Life becomes softer when some moments are allowed to happen without immediate review. Many overaware people have a strong default mode network, or at least a mind that easily turns toward reflection when nothing else demands attention. The default mode network is involved in memory, imagination, self-reference, and mental time travel. It helps us make meaning from experience. But when it becomes too active at night, the bed can become a theater of old conversations and future possibilities. The room is dark, the body is still, and the mind begins to unroll scenes. What did that moment mean? Why did I answer that way? What will happen next week? The mind is not trying to be cruel, it is trying to organize life, but night is not always the right desk for paperwork. Mental time travel can be beautiful in daylight, it gives memory depth and future shape. At night though, the same ability may need dimmer settings. The mind can visit fewer rooms, it can close more doors. Rumination is one form this inner activity can take. It is not the same as useful reflection. Useful reflection usually leads somewhere, a decision, an apology, a plan, a lesson, a release. Rumination circles, it returns to the same scene with slightly different lighting, hoping that the next pass will finally produce certainty. For an overaware person, rumination may feel almost responsible. If I keep thinking, I will understand. If I understand, I will be safe. But many parts of life do not offer complete certainty. A person can think for hours and still not know exactly what someone meant. At some point, the kindest thought is the one that says enough for tonight. Certainty is a tempting promise, but often an impossible one. The mind may keep returning because it believes one more lap will end the search. Rest begins when it learns that some searches are not meant to finish tonight. The inner observer may also judge emotions before they have had time to move. Sadness appears, and the observer asks whether sadness is justified. Anger appears, and the observer asks whether anger is moral. Joy appears, and the observer wonders whether it will last. This judging can interrupt the body's natural emotional rhythm. Feelings are like weather passing through a valley. They gather, change, release, and leave traces. They do not always need immediate explanation. Sometimes the most healing response is very simple. There is sadness here, there is warmth here, there is tiredness here. Naming a feeling without turning it into a court case can allow it to pass more gently through the room. A feeling named gently often changes on its own. It may become smaller, clearer, or simply more bearable. The name is not a cage. It is a soft label on a passing cloud, enough to recognize it without holding it still. One practice that many reflective people find helpful is to give the inner observer a kinder role. Instead of an inspector, it can become a witness. An inspector looks for what is wrong. A witness says, I see what is happening. I see that you're tired. I see that you're unsure. I see that your mind wants to solve something because it cares about your safety. This shift may sound small, but it changes the emotional climate inside. The self is no longer split into one part living and another part criticizing. Instead, there is a steadier companionship. The mind still notices, but its noticing becomes less sharp around the edges, more like a hand resting gently on the back of a chair. The witness has a slower breath than the inspector. It does not rush to correct. It does not hurry to accuse. It watches with the patience of someone sitting beside a sleeping fire, present enough to tend it, calm enough not to stir it constantly. As this chapter ends, imagine placing the inner observer in a comfortable chair near a window. It does not have to leave. It does not have to stop being intelligent. It can simply watch the night without taking notes for a while. Outside, the sky is quiet. Inside, the room is warm enough. A thought rises and fades. Another arrives and drifts away. The observer does not chase each one down the street. It lets them pass like late buses on a rainy avenue. There will be time for reflection tomorrow if reflection is needed. For now, awareness can be present without standing guard. It can look out at the dark glass and breathe. The buses can pass on their own schedules. Some are important, some are not, and some only look important because they are lit brightly in the dark. You can remain at the window and let the avenue grow quiet again. Awareness does not live only in thought, it lives in the body. The body is always sending information: heartbeat, breath, hunger, warmth, tension, heaviness, lightness, a flutter in the stomach, a tightness in the throat. The ability to sense these internal signals is called interoception. For some people, interoception is very strong. They notice small changes quickly. This can be useful. It can help someone recognize tiredness, thirst, excitement, or the need for rest before they become extreme. But when the mind is already on alert, ordinary bodily sensations may be interpreted as warnings. A small flutter becomes a question becomes concern. Concern makes the body louder. The body is not an interruption to the mind's work. It is where life is happening. For people who think deeply, returning to the body can feel almost too simple, yet simplicity may be exactly what the overworked system needs. The body and mind speak to each other constantly. A thought can change the breath can change a thought. A tight shoulder can suggest danger to the mind, and a worried mind can tighten the shoulder further. This loop is not a failure, it is how the nervous system works. But in an over-aware person, the loop can become too sensitive. A slight racing of the heart after climbing stairs may be read as alarm. A warm face may be read as embarrassment. A restless stomach may be read as proof that something is wrong. Then the stress response increases and the original sensation grows. The body seems to confirm the fear, when really it is responding to being watched so closely. This loop can be softened by lowering the volume of attention. Instead of leaning toward every sensation with concern, the mind can lean back a little. It can let the body make its ordinary sounds without turning each one into news. A useful distinction is the difference between sensation and story. Sensation is what is actually present in the body: warmth in the chest, pressure behind the eyes, a quick breath, a pulse in the wrist. Story is what the mind says it means. I'm not safe, I have made a mistake, something bad is coming. The story may sometimes contain information, but it is not the same as the sensation. At night, when the mind is tired, stories can become more convincing than they need to be. So we can practice returning to sensation in simple language. There is a beating heart, there is a tired jaw, there is a body lying under a blanket. For this moment, that may be enough. Sensation language is humble. It stays close to the facts: warm, tight, moving, heavy, light, pulsing, tired. These words are less dramatic than the stories that follow them, and sometimes their plainness is what makes them calming. The over-aware body may also hold the emotions of the day long after the mind has moved on. A conversation may leave a heaviness in the chest. A busy place may leave a buzzing along the arms. A moment of uncertainty may leave the stomach slightly clenched. These traces do not mean the day is still happening. They may simply be leftovers, like warmth remaining in the stone after sunset. The body releases slowly. It appreciates repetition, softness, and time. A long exhale, a glass of water, a room with fewer sounds, the feeling of fabric against the skin. These are not dramatic cures. They are signals of ordinary safety, offered again and again until the body begins to believe them. The stone does not release warmth because it has been persuaded by arguments. It releases because the air changes and time passes. Your body too may release by gradual conditions rather than sudden insight. Sometimes the aware person tries to think their way out of bodily tension. They explain the feeling, analyze it, trace its history, and search for the perfect interpretation. This may help for a while, but the body often needs a different language. It needs warmth, weight, breath, movement, and permission. It may need to unclench without explaining itself. You can imagine speaking to the body as you might speak to a tired child who has had a long day, not with lectures, not with pressure, just with steadiness. You're here. The bed is here, the room is quiet enough, there is nothing to prepare for in this minute. We can let one small muscle soften and then another. The tired child image is only an image, but it carries a useful softness. Most parts of us respond better to steadiness than interrogation. A body that has been questioned all day may be grateful for being comforted instead. It can also help to remember that bodies are allowed to be imperfect at night. A body may make sounds, shift positions, ache a little, feel warm, feel cool, or ask for patience. None of these ordinary variations require a committee meeting in the mind. They are part of being alive. The over-aware person may be tempted to monitor sleep itself, asking whether they are falling asleep quickly enough, deeply enough, correctly enough, but sleep comes more easily when it is not being inspected. Like a shy animal at the edge of a garden, it approaches when the lights are low and the watchers are gentle. You do not need to chase sleep, you can make the room kind and let sleep decide when to enter. Sleep becomes harder when it is treated like a performance review. The body does not need to prove it is relaxing, it can simply be invited again and again into slightly better conditions until rest arrives in its own unannounced way. As we close this chapter, let the body become less like a report and more like a place. A place with a ceiling, a floor, and soft darkness around it. A place where signals can rise without becoming commands. The heart beats because it is keeping you company. The lungs move because they know the old rhythm. The stomach settles, the hands grow quiet, the face releases some of its daytime expression. If a sensation appears, you do not have to turn it into a prediction. You can let it be one small sound in a large night. You can let the body be known, not interrogated. You can rest inside it as inside a house whose lamps are slowly being turned down. The house image can grow quieter now. Perhaps there is a small kitchen, a dim hallway, a bedroom with a low lamp. Nothing in the house is urgent, the rooms are simply rooms, and the body is allowed to live in them peacefully. Another tender part of over-awareness is empathy. Some people do not merely understand another person's feelings. They seem to feel the echo of those feelings inside themselves. A friend's worry remains with them after the conversation ends. A stranger's loneliness in a waiting room can soften their whole mood. A brief sadness in someone's eyes may follow them into the evening. This capacity can be beautiful. It can make a person deeply kind. It can also be exhausting if there is no boundary around it. Empathy without boundary becomes like standing in the rain with no coat, calling it compassion while slowly growing cold. Compassion needs warmth for the one who is offering it too. The raincoat image matters because caring people often forget they're standing in weather. They may call their shivering devotion, when really they need shelter too. Compassion is warmer when it includes the one who is compassionate. The brain has systems that help us resonate with others. We read faces, voices, posture, timing, and movement. We understand feeling not only through abstract thought but through embodied simulation. If someone near us is tense, our own body may prepare. If someone laughs softly, the room may loosen. Human beings are built for this kind of connection, but the over-aware person may have a resonance that stays on after the music has stopped. They may leave a conversation still carrying another person's worry as if it had been folded into their own coat. The difficulty is not that they care too much in a moral sense, it is that their care has not learned where to set things down. Resonance is not failure, it is part of being human. The work is to notice when resonance has become possession, when another person's feeling has moved from being heard to being carried as if it were your own assignment. Many highly empathic people become emotional translators in their families, friendships, or workplaces. They notice who is uncomfortable, they soften tension, they choose careful words, they remember what hurts whom. They may do this so naturally that others never realize how much effort it takes. The room feels easier because the empathic person is quietly adjusting the temperature, yet if they are always the one adjusting, they may forget to ask whether they are warm enough. They may become loved for their understanding and unseen in their fatigue. This is why empathy needs reciprocity when possible and solitude when reciprocity is not available. A heart that listens deeply must also have times when no one is speaking to it. A heart that listens deeply may need blank spaces in the day, not empty in a lonely sense, but empty like a clean table after a meal, ready to be wiped, cleared, and left alone under soft light. There is a difference between feeling with someone and feeling for them in a way that replaces them. Feeling with says, I'm near you and I care. Replacing says, I will carry this because you're carrying it. The first creates connection, the second can create exhaustion and sometimes resentment. People are allowed to have their own emotional tasks. A friend may be sad without you needing to solve the sadness before bedtime. A partner may be stressed without your nervous system needing to become the workshop where all stress is repaired. A colleague may be disappointed without you turning yourself into a net beneath them. You can be kind and still let another person's inner life remain theirs. Connection can remain even when responsibility is returned. You can sit beside someone without becoming their weather. You can offer kindness without moving their entire storm into your own room. This is difficult for caring people and also deeply freeing. One gentle boundary is the pause before absorption. When you feel another person's emotion entering you, you might imagine a small pause like a porch between the outside weather and the rooms of a house. On that porch, you can notice what is arriving. This is grief, this is irritation, this is fear. This belongs partly to them. I can care about it without making it fully mine. The image is simple, but the practice can be powerful. A porch is not a locked door. It is also not the middle of the living room. It allows hospitality with space. It allows you to greet the emotional weather without letting every storm soak the furniture. The porch can have a chair, a roof, and a small lamp. It is a hospitable place, but not the whole house. From there, you can greet emotion, listen to it, and decide how far inside it may come. Empathy also needs the freedom to include yourself. Some aware people have trained their attention outward so often that their own needs arrive last, faint and apologetic. They know when others are uncomfortable, but they do not notice their own thirst. They can name a friend's sadness, but not their own irritation. They can sense a room's tension, but not the way their shoulders have climbed toward their ears. A more balanced empathy includes the self as one of the people present, not above others, not below others, simply included. You are also someone in the room. Your breathing matters, your limits matter, your softness matters. The field of compassion is wider when you're not standing outside it. Including yourself may feel unfamiliar if you have lived as the room's interpreter, but you're not only the interpreter, you're also a person with a nervous system, a history, a body, and a right to gentleness. Let this empathic chapter close beside a quiet window after rain. The street shines softly. A few windows across the way are lit. Behind each one, someone has a life you cannot fully know. There is tenderness in that and also relief. You do not have to hold all the lights in all the windows. You can wish people peace without entering every room. You can care from your own side of the glass over awareness. May invite you to feel the whole neighborhood at once, but rest asks for something smaller. This window, this breath, this body, this little pool of lamplight, compassion can travel outward and then return like a tide that remembers the shore. The windows across the street can stay lit without your attention. Other lives continue beyond your reach, not as a rejection, but as a relief. The world is too large to hold at once, and no heart was made to hold it all without rest. A mind that notices much may begin to believe that enough noticing can prevent pain. If it can predict the future, prepare for every turn, and understand every hidden motive, perhaps nothing will catch it unready. This wish is deeply human. It is also impossible to fulfill. Life contains uncertainty, and no amount of awareness can remove it completely. Still, the over-aware mind may keep trying. It rehearses conversations that may never happen. It imagines endings before beginnings have settled. It creates backup plans for emotional events that have not occurred. The intention is protection. The cost is that life begins to feel like something managed from a distance rather than inhabited from within. This attempt to be unready for nothing can become a life of permanent rehearsal, yet even the best rehearsal is not the same as living the scene. At some point, the curtain rises on an ordinary day, and you are allowed to be there imperfectly. Prediction can feel productive because it resembles preparation. Sometimes it is preparation. Planning what to say in a difficult conversation can be useful. Thinking through a practical problem can save trouble, but prediction becomes heavy when it tries to cover every possible emotional outcome. What if they misunderstand me? What if they leave? What if I succeed and cannot maintain it? What if I fail and everyone sees? These questions can multiply like lanterns along a dark path until the mind is no longer walking. It is only lighting more path. The future receives so much attention that the present grows thin. The cup in the hand cools. The evening passes unnoticed. The body waits for a life. The mind is busy rehearsing. The cooling cup is a quiet reminder. While the mind prepares for every possible tomorrow, the present is losing its warmth. Rest asks you to come back before the cup is completely cold, before the evening has passed unnoticed. Analysis paralysis is one name for becoming stuck among possibilities. The over-aware person may see many angles which can make choosing feel unsafe. Each option has consequences. Each consequence has feelings attached. Each feeling creates another branch. Soon, a small decision becomes a forest. Should I send the message now or tomorrow? Should I explain more or less? Should I accept the invitation or protect my energy? The mind wants the choice that creates no regret. But such a choice is rare. Most human choices involve imperfect information. At some point we step. We do not step because we know everything. We step because life cannot be lived entirely from the doorway. The doorway is an honest place, but it is not a home. Many aware people spend years at doorways, evaluating every room before entering. Sometimes the next kindness is to step in, even if the furniture is not perfectly arranged. Control is often misunderstood. The overaware person may not want to control other people. Often they want to control surprise, disappointment, rejection, conflict, or the feeling of being unprepared. They may become careful with words, careful with timing, careful with tone, careful with what they reveal. Care can be loving, but when care is driven by fear, it becomes a cage built from good intentions. The person may avoid asking for what they need because the possible reaction seems too complicated. They may avoid joy because joy could be lost. They may avoid rest because rest lowers vigilance. In trying to avoid pain, they may also avoid some of the softness that makes life worth enduring. A cage built from good intentions can be hard to recognize because it looks responsible. The bars may be politeness, foresight, caution, and care. But if no light gets in, even responsible bars must be questioned gently. The alternative to control is not recklessness. It is trust in small amounts. Trust does not have to mean believing that everything will turn out perfectly. It can mean believing that you will meet what comes with the resources available then. It can mean allowing an evening to unfold without planning every mood. It can mean answering a message with sincerity and letting the other person have their response. It can mean making one reasonable choice and letting the branch not taken remain unexamined. Trust for an over-aware mind may begin very modestly, not with a grand surrender, but with the decision to leave one question unanswered until morning. Leaving one question unanswered can feel small, but small acts teach the nervous system. It learns by lived evidence that the night can pass, morning can arrive, and not every unopened question becomes a danger in the dark.
There is relief in remembering that uncertainty is not always danger. It is also where surprise, creativity, tenderness, and rest live. A song you did not expect. A kindness you could not have planned. A quiet morning that asked nothing from you. A conversation that became easier because it was not rehearsed. These moments require a little open space. If the mind fills every space with prediction, there is nowhere for them to arrive. So perhaps tonight you can leave a small unplanned corner in the room. You do not have to know exactly how tomorrow will feel. You do not have to complete every scenario. Some parts of the future can remain folded, like clean linen on a chair. The folded future is allowed to be folded. You do not have to smooth it out across the bed tonight. Some fabric wrinkles less when it is left alone, and some worries become clearer after they have not been handled for a while.
As this chapter fades, picture a calm observatory on a hill. The telescope is pointed toward the stars, but the astronomer has gone home for the night. The sky does not vanish because no one is measuring it. The stars continue without being watched. In the same way, life continues even when your mind stops calculating for a while. People continue to have their thoughts. Tomorrow continues to approach at its own pace. Your worth does not depend on keeping every possibility in view. Awareness can look up, marvel, and then close the dome. Prediction can rest. The night can be night, not a problem asking to be solved. The closed observatory is peaceful because it trusts the sky to continue. This is a deep kind of trust. Not trust that nothing will ever change, but trust that you do not need to witness every change in order to be safe. Now we turn toward boundaries, not as harsh walls, but as gentle shapes that make life more livable. Awareness without boundaries is like water without banks. It spreads everywhere and becomes difficult to move through. Boundaries give attention a channel. They help the mind know what belongs here, what belongs later, and what may not belong to you at all. A boundary may be external, such as leaving a noisy space, closing a conversation, or taking time before answering. It may also be internal, such as choosing not to interpret a tone after a certain hour, or deciding that one uncertain message does not deserve the whole evening. Boundaries are how clarity learns to be kind to the person who carries it. Water without banks can feel vast at first, but soon it loses direction. Attention is similar. The boundary does not diminish the water's nature, it gives the water a path, a song, and a place to reflect the moon. One useful boundary is the boundary around interpretation. The aware mind may produce many interpretations quickly. That person is upset. This silence means distance. That compliment has a hidden purpose. This feeling means something is wrong. Some interpretations may be accurate. Others may be guesses wearing serious clothing. You do not need to argue with every guess. You can simply label it as one possible story. Maybe this is true. Maybe something else is true. I do not have enough information tonight. This little phrase can loosen the grip of certainty. It reminds the mind that a possibility is not a verdict. It places the interpretation on a shelf where it can wait without taking over the room. A shelf is kinder than a courtroom. A thought placed there does not have to defend itself, and you do not have to decide its whole future. It can simply wait in view, quiet and contained. Another boundary is the boundary around responsibility. Overaware people often see what could be improved. They notice the awkwardness, the sadness, the unmet need, the tension at the edge of a group. Because they can see it, they may feel responsible for changing it. But perception is not always assignment. Seeing a cloud does not mean you must move the weather. You can respond when it is appropriate, when you have capacity, and when the situation truly invites your help. You can also let some things unfold without you. This is not coldness, it is respect for your limits and for other people's ability to live their own lessons. Clouds move without our permission. Tension moves too, though sometimes slowly. You may witness it, respond if needed, and still remember that the entire sky is not yours to manage with your hands. There is also a boundary around time. Some thoughts are not wrong, but they arrive at the wrong hour. The mind may raise an important question just as the room is growing dark. What should I do about that relationship? What will happen with that project? Why did that old memory return today? These questions may deserve care, but bedtime is rarely the best counsel chamber. You can give them a place to wait, a notebook, a morning walk, a conversation scheduled for another day. By postponing a thought, you're not ignoring it. You're giving it a better chair to sit in at a time when your mind has more light. Morning light is a real resource. Problems that look enormous in the dark often become more specific after sleep, water, and ordinary daylight. Letting time help is not avoidance, it is collaboration with your own biology. Boundaries become easier when the body feels included. It is difficult to think clearly about limits when exhausted, hungry, overstimulated, or lonely. The mind may mistake depletion for truth. Everything seems more urgent when the nervous system is frayed, so a practical boundary may begin with basic care. Eat something simple. Turn down the brightness. Step away from the screen. Let the shoulders drop. Let the jaw unclench. The aware mind sometimes searches for a profound answer, when the first answer is physiological kindness. A calmer body will not solve every question, but it may stop every question from sounding like an alarm. Basic care may sound too simple for a complicated mind, but complicated minds especially need simple care. A dimmer room, a slower breath, a glass of water, a rested body, these are not small things to the nervous system. A boundary can be tender and still real. You can say, I cannot talk about this tonight. You can say, I need time to think. You can say, I care about you and I'm not able to carry this right now. Even if those sentences are never spoken aloud, they can be practiced inside. Many aware people fear that boundaries will make them less loving. But love without limits can become blurred and resentful. Love with limits has room to breathe. It does not require the person to vanish in order to remain connected. It allows closeness to be chosen, not compulsively performed. It lets attention return to its own home. Practiced internally, these sentences become paths. The first time, they may feel awkward. The 50th time, they may begin to feel possible. Boundaries are often learned by repetition before they feel natural. As we leave the chapter of boundaries, imagine a river at dusk. The banks do not imprison the water, they guide it. Because of them, the river can move, reflect trees, carry moonlight, and make its way through the valley. Your awareness, too, may need banks. It may need edges around interpretation, responsibility, time, and energy. Within those edges, it can become clearer, kinder, and less overwhelming. It can notice beauty without drowning in detail. It can notice pain without becoming all pain. It can notice uncertainty without turning life into a permanent emergency. Boundaries do not make awareness smaller in a poor way. They make it usable, graceful, and able to rest. The river does not apologize for its banks. It moves because of them. If your awareness has flooded you in the past, perhaps the next season is not about becoming less deep, but about finding a channel that can carry depth peacefully. Now, as the night grows deeper, we can move into small practices. These are not strict instructions, and they are not medical treatment. They are gentle possibilities for an over-aware mind at bedtime. The first is naming. When the mind begins to gather many details, you can name the process rather than entering every detail. Thinking, remembering, interpreting, planning, protecting. A simple name can create a little space. It says, I see what the mind is doing. I do not have to climb into every carriage of the train. I can stand on the platform and watch some of them pass. Naming does not force thoughts away. It makes them less mysterious. A label can be as light as a feather. Planning, remembering, wondering, there it is. Once named, the thought may not vanish, but it often stops pretending to be the whole room. A second practice is returning to neutral detail. Overaware minds are often drawn to emotional meaning, so neutral detail can be restful. The weight of the blanket, the darkness behind the eyelids, the temperature of the air near the nose, the farthest sound in the room. The place where the body touches the mattress, these details do not need to be interpreted. They are not social clues, they are not predictions, they are simple anchors in the present. The mind may leave them many times, and that is alright. Each return is a small homecoming, not a failure, not a test, just a quiet turning back toward what is here. Neutral detail is humble and faithful. it asks for no biography. The blanket does not ask what your last conversation meant. The mattress does not ask whether tomorrow will be perfect. These ordinary things invite the mind back to earth. A third practice is the evening shelf. Imagine a wooden shelf near the door of sleep. On it, you can place unsolved matters, a conversation that needs thought, a task for tomorrow, a feeling you do not yet understand, a question about another person. You're not throwing them away, you're placing them somewhere visible where they can wait. Some minds resist this because they fear that setting a thought down means losing control. But a shelf is an act of care. It keeps things from being carried in your arms all night. In the morning, if a matter still matters, it will be there. It does not need to sleep in the bed beside you. The shelf can be imagined again and again as often as needed. Each time you place something there, you practice the art of not carrying everything into sleep. The shelf is patient. It can hold what the arms are tired of holding. A fourth practice is soft permission. Many people try to rest by scolding themselves. Stop thinking, stop worrying. Calm down, but the over-aware mind rarely softens under scolding. It has often been working hard for years. Instead, you might try permission. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed not to know. You are allowed to have noticed something and still do nothing about it tonight. You are allowed to let an emotion be unfinished. You are allowed to disappoint the part of you that wants total certainty. Permission is not surrender to chaos. It is a door open in a room that has been too tightly locked. Permission may be the first language some tired minds have never heard clearly. You are allowed. You are allowed. The phrase is simple enough to repeat without effort and soft enough to meet the ports that brace against command. A fifth practice is choosing one small kindness for the body. Not a grand ritual unless you want one, but a simple sign of care. Loosen the hands, let the tongue rest, notice the pillow under the head. Feel the breath moving lower if it wants to. Imagine the forehead becoming smooth, as if a warm cloth had been placed there. The body does not require perfect relaxation to begin resting. It only needs a few trustworthy signals. When the body receives them, the mind may not become silent right away, but it may become less urgent. It may begin to understand that the night's work is not analysis. The night's work is recovery. A single unclenched hand can be enough for now. The body does not need a complete transformation to receive a message of safety. Small releases are still releases, and small kindnesses accumulate in quiet ways. A sixth practice is letting memory become scenery. If an old scene appears, you do not have to enter it fully. You can imagine it at a distance, like a lighted window seen from a quiet road. You know something is there. You do not need to knock, you do not need to explain the whole history before sleep. You can say, this is a memory. It is passing through. The present room is here. The blanket is here. The breath is here. This distinction can be very soothing for people whose awareness moves easily through time. Memory can be acknowledged without becoming the place where you spend the night. The road outside the memory can be cool and empty. You can keep walking there. The lit window can remain behind you, not ignored, but no longer entered. The present night has its own air. The seventh practice is especially simple. Let one thing be unknown. Choose one small uncertainty and deliberately leave it unopened, not forever, just for tonight. You may not know exactly why someone spoke the way they did. You may not know how next month will feel. You may not know whether you handled everything perfectly. Let one of these remain folded. Feel how the mind wants to unfold it, and then gently do not. This is a small exercise in trust. It teaches the nervous system that uncertainty can be present without immediate investigation. The unknown can sit quietly in the room, and nothing has to happen to it before morning. The unopened uncertainty may rustle a little like paper in a drawer. Let it rustle. It does not need to be flattened. It does not need to be answered. It can simply exist at the edge of sleep. Now we enter the final chapter where awareness begins to become rest. The night is deeper. The images can grow simpler. There is less to explain. We have looked at temperament, learned alertness, social perception, the inner observer, the body, empathy, prediction, and boundaries. Each one is a doorway into the same gentle truth. Awareness is powerful, but it needs mercy. It needs rhythm. It needs dark hours when it is not asked to perform. You may still notice thoughts moving. You may still hear small sounds. That is alright. Rest does not require the complete absence of awareness. It asks only that awareness loosen its grip. The grip may loosen one finger at a time. First the need to explain, then the need to predict, then the need to protect everyone from every feeling. The hand opens slowly, and the night receives what it was holding. Picture a quiet library after closing. The lamps are low, the chairs have been pushed in, books rest on their shelves without needing to be read tonight. This is one image for the over-aware mind at rest. Nothing is destroyed, nothing is denied. The books are still there. Memories, questions, perceptions, feelings, patterns, stories. But the hour of reading has ended. The librarian moves slowly through the aisles, turning off one lamp, then another. There is order without effort, there is knowledge without strain, there is a sense that what matters can wait in its proper place. Your mind too can become a library after closing. Full quiet and no longer open to every visitor. The library does not become empty when it closes, it becomes peaceful. This is a comforting distinction, for a mind that fears rest will mean losing wisdom. The wisdom remains only the working hours end. Awareness becomes wisdom when it learns timing. It does not need to vanish. It simply learns when to come forward and when to step back. In the morning, awareness may help you choose words carefully, notice beauty, understand a friend, or make a thoughtful decision, but at night it can become softer. It can become the awareness of warmth, of breath, of darkness, of being held by the ordinary world. It can notice that the pillow is cool. It can notice that the room is not asking for a performance. It can notice that the body has carried you through another day. This is still awareness. It is awareness turned towards safety instead of scanning for threat. Safety can be a subject of awareness too. The mind that once searched for threat can learn to notice the quiet door, the steady wall, the familiar blanket, the continued breath. These are not dramatic signs, but they are real ones. If you're someone who has spent much of life reading between lines, perhaps tonight you can let the lines blur. Let the page grow dim. Let the margins widen. Not every sentence needs commentary. Not every silence needs translation. Not every feeling needs a reason before it is allowed to exist. There's a deep rest in letting experience be incomplete. The moon does not explain itself to the lake. The trees do not justify the shape of their shadows. The room does not ask you to prove that you deserve sleep. You are allowed to be unfinished and still be held by the night. You are allowed to pause without completing the entire map. Blur can be merciful. A page held too close strains the eyes. Held farther away, it becomes part of a larger room. Tonight the mind can hold life farther away. Softly enough that sleep has space to gather. The bright mind may still offer one more thought, then another. That is all right. You do not have to push them away. You can meet them as you would meet late leaves moving across a path. There goes a thought about tomorrow. There goes a thought about someone else. There goes a thought about who you are becoming. Let them move. Let them be carried by a wind. You do not need to direct underneath them. The path remains. Underneath the path, the earth remains. Underneath all the noticing, there is a quieter being that does not have to notice in order to exist. Rest belongs to that deeper place. The deeper place does not need to win an argument with thought. It waits underneath argument, patient and steady. When the mind grows tired of following every leaf, it may begin to feel the path again. And perhaps this is the softest reframe of all. People who are too aware are not only people who suffer from noticing, they are also people who can bring gentleness into a rough world. Once their gentleness includes themselves, they can see nuance without becoming trapped by it. They can sense pain without becoming only pain. They can understand complexity without losing the simple goodness of a warm bed, a quiet room, a breath that keeps returning. The mind that once searched everywhere for danger can over time learn to search for signs of safety too. The steady wall, the low light, the blanket. The fact that this moment is asking very little. Gentleness that includes the self changes the whole system. The aware person no longer has to choose between insight and peace. Slowly, they can have both clear seeing in daylight and a kind surrender when the room grows dark. So now there is no need to follow the thread any further. The psychology can rest, the explanations can close their books, the watchful parts of you can sit by the window and grow sleepy. If a sound comes, it can be only a sound. If a thought comes, it can be only a thought. If a feeling comes, it can be only a feeling passing through the wide dark room of the night. You have noticed enough for today, you have carried enough. Let the mind become less like a lantern searching the corners and more like a small warm glow beside the bed. Soft enough to comfort you, dim enough to let you sleep. Let the final glow be very small. It does not need to reach every corner, it only needs to be enough to say that you are here, the night is here, and the work of noticing can end for now.